Evening all, Daniel Hand, RPG therapist, and we're making a habit of having other people here. I mean, I don't know why, but actually some people just seem to want to talk about RPGs and therapy. It's almost as if there are geek therapists out there. So I know, who'd have thought? So it is my absolute pleasure to introduce to you Eric, is it Droznock? Droznock. Oh, so I've only ever seen Droz. That's
I just don't put the whole thing on there.
Oh, well, there you go. I should see. Somebody who's been doing this longer would have asked you your name first.
Eric. But assumptions. But again, part of the profession, right? We kind of live. We find a shadow to hide in sometimes.
I don't. Only sometimes. I live in it. Eric, thank you so much for coming along. We've been prodding each other for
a while,
months now, maybe even years.
Yeah, I know. Like one of the first times I saw the geek therapy stuff, I know I reached out early on. We had a conversation at one point and dropped off, and that's like gone back and forth a few times, I think.
And then I just put feelers out saying, anybody wants to talk on my channel? And I think you may have been, well, if you weren't the first, you were certainly one of the first. And yes, I'm here. Yes. So yeah, just to get us started, tell us a bit about the who, why, and what of yourself. Who do you work with? How do you have a particular modality, and where do RPGs fit into the Book of Eric?
Book of Eric. They start off very biblical, like invoking that slumbering Catholic in me. No, but formally, I'm a big fan of using the title clinical psychotherapist. I believe titles for our profession are important, kind of, in our brief discussion before we started recording. I work predominantly community mental health, which for that means I work with whoever walks through the door with whatever they're walking through the door with. My current caseload is as young as 7, as old as 65. I work with clients presenting with depression, anxiety, ADHD, bipolar 1, 2, schizophrenia, borderline, people with chronic suicidality. People who regularly engage in self-directed violence. I work with people in the LGBT community. I work with people who are lightly on spectrum, deeply on spectrum, just whoever shows up.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's an incredibly complex client base. Just I used to work with homeless clients, and which was community mental health or mental health. It's in the dictionary now, which was community mental health out in the boondocks. And as you say, you get what you're given. They walk through the door, and if you haven't worked in that environment, you just haven't got a clue what it's like.
Not an environment I would have intentionally chosen, but one that this is adult version 2.0 for me. Like kind of again alluding to our pre-camera conversation a bit. I spent about 15 years in corporate America. Decided that wasn't it. Went back to school in my late 30s and for my master's degree, and then actually entered my internship at the opening days of lockdown in the pandemic.
Great timing.
Yeah, that was an experience as well. But pros and cons, much like the Dalai Lama has one of his comments is that sometimes not getting what you want is a stroke of luck. And my first 4 internships that were all approved and ready to go dropped out because the world was just shuddering and no one knew what to do.
Mm-hmm.
My 5th internship was community mental health. at that point, I wasn't even aiming for anything other than an internship. Like the environment didn't matter, the population didn't matter. I just needed my time so I could get my
Give me
degree.
my client hours. Yeah.
Yep. Like, will you say yes and do you mean it? So, and a couple years out, I'm still there for right now, and it's both a deeply challenging and extremely rewarding group of people to work with, a community to work with. I would hesitate to say population because it is such a diverse group.
100%. And I mean, oddly enough, you mentioned the slight thing that hiccuped the world for a little while. I don't know why people are still talking about it. Nothing happened, frankly. Yeah, I was working for a homeless charity at the time. By that point, I was the only therapist on that team for the entire area around me, because everybody else was just either hiding away from stuff or had other more pressing things to do. Because the problem is, I don't know what it's like over in the States, but here, as I was saying again before we started, there are just no mental health jobs out here. And if you want to work for an organization, A, you've got to be stupidly lucky. B, it's usually CBT, or it's charity. And this was a homeless charity, and so I was the only chap who knew how to go. And so, tell me, how do you feel about that? And yeah, and the world community, and we very much became a community for a little time. With the odd exception. I mean, when we go through our basic training, we throw around terms like communal trauma, but that was it writ large, wasn't it? And just having to sit there with it, with people who are there because they have nowhere else to go. That's the whole point of community mental health. These are people who can't afford to go out and spend stupid money on somebody in private practice. They're here because they've got nowhere else to go. Please, can you help me? And it's a type of experience that not many people in our profession have.
And definitely a difficult one, and that I think that piece, talking about the that like quick high five during most of our training, talking about the communal trauma.
Yeah.
The other section of what I'm currently involved in is I'm an adjunct professor at a local university. And
oh, come on, you were doing so well. I liked you for a minute there.
I've never been one that's great with rules, so I'm like, I think I don't know that I'd ever become more than an adjunct, because I don't know if they'd bring me on that much.
Well, the reason I take that, I used to work in academic publishing, and put it to you this way, I was the most complained about member of staff in the company's history. Sorry, carry on.
I won't say that there have been rules named after me, but it may have happened once or twice in life. So,
the Droznock imperative.
It was the Droznock clause in high school. I'm not even joking about that one. I
mean, that's the Robert Ludlum novel.
But right when we were and looking at working with the students I work with, ages roughly 17, 18 through early 20s. So a lot of students who were, for us, late middle school, early high school, when the lockdown occurred and, the pandemic really hit hard. And looking at not only a lot of developmental holds, but also academic holds. And coming out of that, and seeing these deficits, again, both academically and socially. And again, I'm the father of two. Both of my kids are, one's late high school, one's early college. So I saw this not only from the perspective of a therapist, where I'm working with this age group now as a professor, but also as a father, and seeing how much that I don't know that we have the language yet therapeutically to describe what these people have and are going through.
Yeah, I completely agree. I've got a son who is late high school myself, and he's like me. Lockdown was kind of perfect scenario, personality-wise. Great. I don't have to go out and talk to people. I mean, perfect. You know, job. Just where do I sign up? But developmentally, you know, we as human beings need that interaction. If we don't have, I mean, this is very much a product of that time. I mean, our online relationships, just the level we're at now just wouldn't have existed had it not been for that period.
Well, and even if you're looking, I mean, from the technical side of things, I don't care what video platform like this you're looking at. Even the huge houses that have been doing this pre-pandemic, nobody ever considered this level of traffic.
Not at all.
And none of the systems were prepared for it, and they're still catching up. They're still catching up. But at the same time, too, what was it? I think it's about 2, maybe 3 weeks ago now, that there was a study published looking at the neurobiological variant of how our brains are firing when we're speaking with someone face to face versus in this kind of environment, and looking at how the brain is firing differently.
Oh my God. Can you, I need to read this.
Yeah, I'll find it and I'll send you a link to it. I once again, me being a dork is pervasive. It's just not like gaming or other things. Like, it's just, one of the benefits of being a neurodivergent kid, it's like, what do? I hyperfocus on what? Whatever's in front of me at the moment.
Because, I mean, and this kind of segues us into the whole RPG side of things. Because as regular viewers of this channel will know, I've got a book out. Buy it wherever you get your reading material. But part of, I mean, it is basically just an academically published GM's guide at the end of the day, but it had to have a chapter of theory in there. And one thing I did a lot of reading on was how our relationship with fictional characters fires our brains in much the way we relate to real people. And so, and the differences and the similarities thereof. And so, I mean, that sounds...
Well, but even with what you just said, the variances, and let's be honest, like, how much of a variant is there? I mean, let's look at something like Gestalt therapy. I mean, Gestalt therapy,
using role play for decades.
Yeah, I mean, not only using, whether it's role play or whether it's empty chair. I mean, Gestalt's go-to hallmark of a milieu, right? You know, like let's yell at the person that's not there. But it works because our brains really struggle to differentiate between what's real and what's imagined.
I say this exact phrase to my clients all the time. The human mind is one of the most complex and bizarre machines in existence. It is also unbelievably stupid and easy to fool. And yeah, as you say, talking to an empty chair, you get into the zone and you are verbalizing thoughts, feelings that you have been suppressing for, in some cases, decades.
Yeah.
The difference between RPG therapy and empty chair therapy is you're putting somebody in the chair, you know, and giving your client a sword.
And I've actually, where I have pros and cons of working community mental health, doing something like any kind of gaming therapy, unfortunately, tends to be difficult to employ for a lot of reasons. Part of it just being practical and reimbursement reasons. That is honestly a huge barrier. But I have worked with a number of my clients to encourage them to engage in both virtual and in-person gaming groups. And for people who have never done TTRPG ever, and we're talking about it, and they're like, well, what's, they're interested enough to hear the pitch, like they're looking for the pitch. And I'm like, well, I said, now this isn't a quick thing. I said, most games, like if you're a traditional gamer, right, 6 hour, 5, 6, 7 hour sessions, not uncommon. That's kind of what we do. And I said, look, you walk in, you hang up you on the coat rack. And I'm like, and for the next 6 hours, everything you're worried about has nothing to do with what you walked in with. And I'm like, you give your mind this complete break. And at the same time, I'll use it with some of my, this is me being dangerous, especially with a lot of my ND, my neurodivergent and spectrum-y people. As maybe one of my, maybe I'm part of that tribe.
I'm saying nothing. No, I'm not falling for that one.
Yeah. I don't know what you're talking about. But how those of us who have gamed for years, how I'll go with unique our problem-solving abilities become. Because it doesn't matter what game you're playing. The beauty, the reason I've always loved TTRPGs, and I've always said that D&D has ruined any interest I've ever had in video games, because video games have too many damn rules.
Absolutely, and that is one thing that surprises a lot of people compared, because a lot of times TTRPGs are kind of presented as video games just without the video, and it's like no.
Far fewer rules. Everything, like it's a heavy-handed suggestion at best. I mean, anyone who's played 5e and who's played a druid and has never rained livestock on an enemy, maybe read into it. What's that?
If you haven't done that, you're not doing it properly.
If your DM doesn't go, if you go, hey, I have a question, your DM doesn't roll their eyes and go, what now? You haven't been, you haven't been playing long enough. And
oh my God, sorry, I felt that in my core.
My DM, who I played with for years, would get deeply worried when I was quiet for too long. He'd be like, Droznock, what are you working on? I'm like, give me a minute. I mean, just the stories and the ridiculous stuff that we've done over the years. But adapting that, though, and when we're working with ADHD clients, or we're working with people who have spectrum-related symptomatology or on spectrum, and what they hear from their therapists, from their psychiatrists, from their medicators, from their PCPs, is that they just want them to think normally. And exactly. And so and TTRPGs are great because it's that moment where if you think normally, you're going to die. I need you to not only actively use everything you have, I need you to consider how, in like an A-Team kind of 1980s montage way, you're going to abuse every benign magic item you have.
I need you to not only think outside of the box, I need you to pour gasoline over the box and set it on fire, and then just go and jump out of the nearest window and then make your decision.
I had a DM who pretty much started off most of us with a couple, like, what he considered benign magic items, but just to alleviate things in game. We all had a handy haversack.
There is no such thing as a benign magic item.
We all got a handy haversack, so we didn't have to worry about encumbrance. We all got a what was it called? Like, we used to call it the gruel spoon. Like, I think it's like a spoon of feeding or something.
Oh,
It's such a stupid magic item, and it gives you sustenance. Like, you don't have to worry about food. It's not good food, but it's it's hardtack, liquid hardtack.
it's the fantasy equivalent of McDonald's.
Yeah.
Just it's not going to keep you. It's not going to let you live for very long, but you'll get to the end of the campaign.
Yep. It'll get you to the next good food.
Yeah. There you go.
And we also, somebody in the party or a couple of us would get decanters of endless water.
I can see where this is going already.
And everyone else goes to decanter of endless water. Like, I've got my canteen that just doesn't run out, right? And I'm like, but did you read the description? They're like, no, why? And I'm like, the DM's like, no, why?
No, the DM is no, why?
Yes, because the Cantless Endless Water has 3 modes. Has a poor mode, has like a more aggressive mode, and then has like a fire brigade 3rd story mode. And I'm not good with physics, but like, you can run some real basic numbers real quick and talk about how many gallons per minute are coming out. We've won battles by like flooding out areas and just waiting out the bad guys. Like, just keep them off the cliffs and we're going to flood the bottom and just.
That's why the police employ water cannon.
How do you deal with an army of 24 orcs? Well, they're currently in a small contained area that has high walls because it's easily defendable. It also makes a great artificial lake. So we're just going to make sure they don't climb the walls, and we're going to fill the sucker up and just wait. Yeah, but having that perspective ourselves as lifelong gamers, and then using that in itself as a tool, as our ADHD clients are like, or I even have a client who is ADHD and bipolar. So we talk about managing, the ramping, right? The highs and lows. And again, for this client's whole life, this client, a younger adult, and has essentially been told that obviously this is a bad thing. Let's medicate this so you're normal. And when we've been working together, we've been talking about, okay, how do you use those highs? How do you manage them so they're not overly high? So you're not going up too fast, too long. That's what part of the meds are for.
So they're not destructive at the end of the day.
And knowing that intentionality, knowing that you're going to bottom out. Not maybe, what's coming. So how are you using this extra energy? How are you abusing this little bit of extra juice you got?
See, it's funny you say that, because oddly enough, I've got another a client who fits exactly that description as well. And this whole, just again, thinking outside the box, making sure that evaluating what tools you have. I've got this endless supply of water. I have a situation which I know is coming. How can I use the one to just take the edge off the other? And yeah, I mean, and as you say, that just drawing off that that in-game education, and you mentioned being a lifelong player. I suppose now's the point in the conversation where I ask you, so tell us about the red box.
So where I've had the privilege of playing with a few people who played D&D who played chit-based D&D. I've never done that. I didn't even know it was a thing. I have been playing D&D since one, it was Dungeons and Dragons. before it was Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, and before it was an edition. So red box, blue box, for those of us who are old enough to remember, that was a thing. Stranger Things brought back the red box for like that, quirky retro. But I'm old enough that elf wasn't a race, it was a class.
Professor Dungeon Master speaks to you, sir.
Sorry,
have you played the Black Hack?
Not familiar.
Oh, so that's an OSR game, and it really just strips it back and I don't know if elf is a class in that, but as soon as you said that, I was like, oh yeah, that sounds like a go. That sounds like a friendly go-to place. I'm not saying they have it within hand's reach and just pull
or
it
anything,
out, but no, completely not. But
yeah, if I didn't have headphones on, I've got a bunch of my hard copy stuff just over there. Actually, I have one of the games that I desperately want to. I haven't. Not that any of us as gamers would do this, but I may have kicked in heavily for a Kickstarter for a game I haven't fully read or played yet, and it's just sat there. We never do that, of course.
Never done that. I'm completely not waiting for. I think four individual games. Completely not at all. I mean, I didn't just spend £50, so about $60 on this ridiculous. I mean, have you seen that? Look, you could.
That's amazing.
Dungeon Crawl classic size. Yes, but you're not going to learn unless you spend stupid amounts of money on Kickstarter,
right? But yes, so I started with Dungeons and Dragons way back when I colored my own dice. And again, either you know it or you don't. Where the dice used to come with a crayon, and you had to color in the numbers. Second edition was really like my game. Like first, those early things, first edition and those pre-first edition versions of Dungeons and Dragons, I played a lot with my older brother and his friends. Second edition was my friends. Like that was, if you don't look, there are two kinds of people in this world. There are either people who look fondly back on the term THAC0 or those who cringe from it. THAC0 was bizarre, but there's a warm space for it.
Sorry, but I should just interrupt. So I do apologize. I didn't think this far ahead. It's bonfire night here, so we've got all these lunatics letting off firework after firework. So I keep trying to turn my microphone off in time. But again, somebody who does this more regularly might have thought about something like that. Background noise. What's this thing you call background noise? Yeah, I've never actually gotten around to second edition. I've played the red box purely for I mean, not even nostalgia's sake, because I didn't play it back in the day, but just because it's the
experience.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. But no, TUI has not necessarily made itself known in my life yet. So
THAC0 was 2-hit armor class 0 back when the lower the AC, the better.
Oh,
so back when AC was more golf instead of like any normal game, where you wanted the low score to win, not the high score.
Right. Okay. Oh, yes.
Yeah. It was. I'm not saying it made sense. I'm not saying it was functional. It was all kinds of bad, but it was what we had, and it was warm and fuzzy feelings at this point.
Yeah, and that's just it. When you have something like that in your childhood, it doesn't matter how terrible it is. You are gonna. I love He-Man to this day. I know how terrible the He-Man cartoon is. You do not need to tell me how hammy, problematic, naff, etc. it is. I get chills every time I hear "By the Power of
Grayskull."
And there's a game called Thirsty Sword Lesbians, which I've already talked about on my channel. And what really sold it was as a campaign, and a setting, more of a campaign, called The Monster Queers of Castle Gayskull. I'm like, I'm so in.
You're just like, just take my money, just here.
Yes, exactly.
Here it is.
Take it.
Now, for me, that game, my kids and I, my oldest event, especially when they were younger, really got into Avatar: The Last Airbender. And
There was a period where all of my clients wanted to play Firebenders. Just all of them. And
how could you not?
Well, quite. But then the Avatar Legends RPG came out. Since then, nobody has wanted to play.
Well, and I haven't gotten to play it. It's sitting over there. I literally have everything they've published for it, including.
I haven't got the starter set yet, but I saw a picture of it. I'm like, no, I've just spent money on Dark, and I'm waiting for Dolmenwood and this and that and Shadow Dark.
We kicked in for the core book. The original Kickstarter was the core book, an adventure book, and then all kinds of goodies and swags for expansions.
Cards. Yeah, I was a bit disappointed in the cloth map. It was a bit, but that was because Free League spoiled me with their cloth maps.
But I got that. Then I went to one of the local stores and got the starter box because I like all the base information because I really want to use it in a therapeutic setting. So I like having that watered down real quick. And then
waterbended real quick.
Waterbend. And then I also picked up they did one more core book,
Republic City, yeah.
And I have yet to play any of it, but I desperately want to because the D&D kid in me, where D&D solves all problems through violence.
Isn't that the way the world works?
There is no problem in Dungeons and Dragons that can't. I know. I grew up in a very hack and slash gameplay and had an amazing opportunity to transition in my 20s to a group that was a bunch of RPers. They were LARPers and Vampire the Masquerade people who transitioned to D&D. And so it was a very different, I didn't know what to do at first. I'm like, this happens. I'm like, roll for initiative. And they're like, but whoa, let's talk first. I'm like,
maybe we don't need to kill them. Come on. No, kill them.
Like, what do you mean? Like, talk to? Like, I don't understand. What do you?
I don't understand the concept. I'm a therapist. I don't talk about these things.
I have Fireball for a reason.
I didn't ask how nice he was. I asked how many hit points he had.
How flammable does he look? It's really. Does he have a lot of clothing on? So thankfully, I had an amazing opportunity to radically change the way I game, and that was prior to my professional shift. Oh, and so bringing that idea in with me in games like Avatar, the reason Avatar Legends is set up to not discourage combat, but not to resolve all matters through combat.
100%. And I love the balance mechanic as well, because it especially for therapeutic work, and we were talking earlier about clients working with highs and lows. It's just like, it's not a bad thing to get towards one end or the other, but if there are tools that we can use to help you stay, somewhere around the center, let's develop them and let's put them into practice.
Yep.
I will tell you, if you want to play this game,
I'm completely down at this point. Again, I have the material. I just don't like. I don't even know how to even play it, let alone run it.
It's PBTA, isn't it? So it'll be 2d6, and as you say, talking about it's just choosing a playbook, putting your bender type with said playbook, and kicking ass.
And which is going to be funny for me because I've spent I don't know why it happens, but and it happens. I don't care what TTRPG you play. We all tend to fall in love with those one or two concepts that we just can't let go.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, for the past like 5 years, I've played monks. Every time we play D&D, I end up playing a monk.
I need to. I am not a step back and cast fireball kind of player. I need to be up. I've spent a lot of time reflecting on it. I think I've realized, well, my day job is thinking.
Mm-hmm.
My clients have learned to fear this face because they know that I'm about to read them like a book, and I'm just trying to figure out a way of doing it without re-traumatizing them.
How do I say this nicely?
Yeah. And so at the end of the day, I don't want to think. I just want to hit things.
One of my and again, you've been playing too long when your characters have unnecessarily complicated backstories.
I don't know what you mean.
When the DM asks for a bio and you hand him like 3 pages, and you're like, I honestly, this is edited.
I can give you more if you want. Do you need more?
Do you need more?
I can.
Okay. And I had a character who years ago we played a Ravenloft game and had a DM who ran a beautiful Ravenloft game. It's
playing Ravenloft right now, actually. Yeah.
And did a great job, like going from zone to zone, like all different kind of themes. It was just great, and it epitomized the group we had. Both of my kids are gamers because their old man's a dork. So I've raised little dorklings.
I don't know how you manage that, because my kid's old man's a dork and he will not go. He's taken the line. What, you think it's cool? Then I am not doing it.
Oh, we don't game together, but they game with their friends. And but I've always raised on the idea and argue this in groups all the time. I'm like, when you, especially in games like D&D, Shadowrun, those kinds of games, I'm like, you may not be the bad guy, but we certainly aren't the good guy.
Well, no.
I'm like, we're doing this for money and experience. Like we're doing this for personal gain. That does not put us on the moral right of things.
And if you were to take a bird's eye view of any campaign, the bloody swathe that any adventuring party leaves in their wake would not fly in many civilizations.
Yeah. And so, and then this party kind of embraced that in Ravenloft. It was we intentionally made a mercenary group. Like we just put it out there. We're like, look, we're just mercs for hire. And I had made an Inquisitor. I actually kind of went outside my norm and made an Inquisitor and aligned with Ezra, so Goddess of the Mist. And but I had done it with a character who was a human character whose folks were from the old country. They got sucked in. They were banished to the Mists. And so my character was like fighting demons because, this was all wrong and yada, yada, yada. And essentially my character was like kind of pulled like a Wolverine, was just like so pissed off that he just didn't die like humans should. And, Ezra's like, you're really good at this. We're going to keep you around for a while. And so when the campaign ended, like the DM, again, my DM was awesome. And kind of lets us like, how do you want how are you telling the epilogue of your character? And, my character at this point was like 160-year-old human, but was not aged because, by the benefits of Ezra, was kept virile and a stalwart champion of Ezra. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, look, my character just wants to die. Like, yeah, he's done. And then a couple years later, we're running a game. And my DM loves to do stuff like this. And, we're in this field of statues, and all of a sudden one of the statues cracks and emerges a character. And because some of the other characters had been part of this mercenary group, And they're like, and for those of you who are part of the company, they're like, and there's sin. And I'm like, dude, come on. And so my character, who was very happily dead, was, respawned in other world. And then I played him again for a long time. But he went from disgruntled and annoyed to just pissed.
I have two faces, both of them are this.
It was like, look, I was dead and I was happy about that. So yeah, like you're saying, like, all we do is talk. Because of the way the DM ran the Ravenloft character, or the Ravenloft game, there were a lot of firearms, and my character became like a firearms expert. Oh, wow. And so all of a sudden now we're in this new game. We're in it's a high magic game, and everyone's running in to, even the magic users have to be in, a certain, that magic melee distance.
Yeah.
And my character's got like he's given my character a couple higher end firearms, and I'm like, everyone else is like doing all these impressive things. I'm just like, I got covering fire. I mean, my character could have been more American if you tried. What do? Oh, I show up and shoot things with my +12 rifle. You're like, you're what? Yeah, it's like, yeah. It's a 4-bolt Winchester. Oh, like, I mean, it might as well. Yeah, it was absolutely ridiculous. But because it's like, why are you doing this? Like, well, because all day I take care of, I have emotions all day, so I'm not here. Like, yeah. I've hung that up for now.
So I'm going through a massive love affair currently with the new Marvel multiverse RPG, simply because we played that, and because we were playing comic book characters, we didn't have to create a character. So there was no pause between starting play and actually getting into play. There was no time you don't need to figure out your character. You're just in there and you were stopping a bank robbery, and it was just like, oh my god, this is just so peaceful. All the hard work's been done for me. Like, sorry, how much did I hurt him? Oh yeah, say it to me, Daddy. Come
on. I mean, although the other end of that, I think that's also why most the people who I know who are both gamers and specifically TTRPGers and therapists don't run game for that exact same reason. Mm-hmm. Because I can think of we were doing. Do you remember Spycraft at all?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
I was running. I was trying to do a homebrew alt history thing. I'm a history dork amongst other things.
I don't know if you noticed, but yeah, me too.
I was doing like a World War II tangent game.
Sorry, you were doing a World War II tangent game.
World War II didn't end the way it did. Did you ever read the what was the book called? The Fatherland. Was it not?
I haven't read that one. I obviously I know of it, but no, I've never actually read it.
Really, like, nicely done novel. Nothing like literary impressive, but just it was fun. But kind of using that as like a base groundwork and kind of working off that, like, World War II ended ish.
Who was that? That was oh god.
Yeah, I'm not even sure what that. I'd have to jump to.
It was Robert Harris, I think, wasn't it?
Maybe. It's been so long since I've read it, I don't even remember, to be honest with you.
One of those, but yeah, I know of it, but no, I've never actually read it.
But we were playing that, and a great reason, like, here we go, like the exhaustion of GMing. It's Spycraft. It's all like your goal is not to be seen or heard. It's all clandestine affairs. And here it is. I'm running this game, and this group of 4 individuals are trying to hunt this person down and either ideally extract them, and if you can't extract them, eliminate them. But the goal is extraction. Like, that's the goal. Mm-hmm. And also not to be noticed.
Preferably.
And then at one point in the game, they're setting demolitions. And I'm like,
I'm not entirely sure these people have quite got the concept down of not being noticed.
I'm thinking they missed that. But I laugh every time because it's an amazing metaphor for life as a therapist.
Yeah, I could see, yes.
You're like, so we're gonna take care of this, and you're like, oh, what just happened? Like, yeah.
Okay, so let's sweep up that particular mess now, shall we?
My clients will laugh because, so you said CBT earlier. I'm not much of a CBT person, but I do love DBT. And so with Linehan, one of her home bases for DBT is what's called therapeutic irreverence.
Oh, yes, yeah.
I'm really good at that. And so
good at irreverence.
No.
I mean, I've only known you for a little while, but I can tell that you'd never get that right.
And some of my clients, and again, it's that how we develop a rapport and how I work with the client, and when we have the appropriate rapport, they'll tell me something. I'll be like, so that was the plan, huh? Like that's what you walked in, and that's what, like, you're like, ooh, this is the goal.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like what? Why?
What are you thinking? Seriously?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't do DBT, but I am extremely good at not taking it. I mean, I take the view that when people come to therapy, we're not living, 20 years ago where the therapist was talking to somebody who hasn't got a clue. We've got the internet. People have researched their mental health to the nth degree. They know, they're coming to talk to me as an equal, not as somebody who's going to. And so I'm not going to go, oh, yes. Well, that was oh, yes, let's talk about that. I'm like, sorry, what? What? No, sorry. I just got to pause you there.
Yeah, you're what? Like, whoa.
Yeah. What part of that was a good idea? Just in the moment. Like, okay. So you knew that it was a bad idea, but you did it anyway. Can you potentially see the where things went?
Like, can we see the conflict here?
Yeah.
I often talk about intentionality.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's the plan. Like, this intentional, don't do things on accident, do things on purpose. Yes. I'm like, sometimes it works out beautifully. Every now and again you miscalculate, but it happens.
Yeah, if you're going to fail spectacularly.
That's right. and again, those of us who are gamers embrace that. It's like, this is either going to be epic or I'm dead. Like, there's no.
There is. I haven't played it yet. So there are two companies that I will buy anything from. One is Free League, but the other is Rowan, Rook and Deckard, and they've done games like Spire and Die. But they've also done one that's called Heart. It's more of a horror game and like surrealist kind of horror, and body horror, and just plenty of horror. But there is actually rules that every class has its own kind of ultimate rules, which will be just epic to the nth degree, but your character will not survive it.
Any of us who've played Cthulhu.
Yeah.
Your character will die or go insane. Like, those are the two outcomes.
Yes. There is no happy ending here. So actually, let's just make it as showy as possible.
Yeah. And ultimately, the death may be the happy ending. Especially in Cthulhu.
Yes. Well, and same company. They wrote Die recently, and that is a game designed specifically to traumatize the characters. There are so many cool ideas in it that I would desperately love to use with my clients, but I've got to kind of tone it down slightly before I do that. Because, for example, so it's a really clever system. You actually create quote unquote normal, albeit damaged human beings, and then you create who come together to play an RPG, and then you create their characters. And they then go into this RPG world, and the monsters that they fight and the situations they come up are all informed by the character's trauma. So you might find a monster, and it turns out to have the face of the bloke who raped you when you were 15 or something. Yeah, it's just
horrible that way.
Yeah, it is just, again, wouldn't advise using it with your client base.
But when it's a bunch of therapists and we're all pretty warped anyway, like it's a game we're going to spin up.
But it's got elements in like it's one of the paragon classes, the character classes, is the emotion knight, who is a knight who powers their magical attacks by sacred emotion. So if you're a depression knight, you have to get depressed before you can kill things. I mean, do I need to point out the therapeutic value of something like that? It's the world we live in today for RPGs, for our purposes, is
so thick.
Yeah, I mean, and it's kind of a shame that D&D still has the hold over everything that it does. Be, even up till 10 years ago, just over, D&D could half claim to being the best. As in, okay, there were plenty of really good out there, but it's lost that now. It is the most well known, but there are so many to choose from that D&D is never going to be the perfect game for your group. It might be the easiest game for your group, but if you bother to look, there will be something that scratches that itch perfectly.
Before I definitely want to comment on that real quick. Deck of Player Safety. Are you familiar?
I am not familiar with it, but I am excited already.
Deck of Player Safety is a very simple concept that was beautifully done. Once again, yet another Kickstarter.
Of course it will. Of course. Why wouldn't it have been?
And it's a deck of cards, and the premise is trauma-informed gaming. And so you pass around the deck, and everyone has to take at least one card. And every card has there's a bunch of things that are, things that you find uncomfortable, that you may be triggering for you, things like that. There are also blank cards. So and cards that say like, I'm good. So like, there's no concerns for me. So the goal is that everybody has to pick a card. So nobody is like identified of like, they have a problem, huh? So like, you're going to be the problem player. Everybody has to pick a card, and you hand them into the DM or the GM, and it just gives them a list of things to avoid.
Huh.
Yeah. Beautifully simple, glorious way to run game, especially if we're looking to run games therapeutically.
I mean, that is kind of that.
It's so obvious, right? And you're just like, I've never, like, it's just so obvious. How is that not, how is that like taken till now?
Yeah.
It's just so beautifully obvious. But yeah, it's called Deck of Player Safety. It's a very, nicely done, not overly ostentatious, not expensive. Just especially running game therapeutically.
So yeah, every time somebody comes on this channel and speaks to me, they end up costing me money. It's
Oh yeah, we're all I think that's just it's the admission fee to being a gaming dork. It's just that list, like, oh yeah, that.
Yeah, oh yeah, I need that. Well, when I say need, need.
Well, it's a business expense. I'm going to do this in therapy.
Yeah, obviously.
Maybe eventually I'm going to have the opportunity to do this in therapy
when I retire.
But like
5 minutes left, just to give you a heads up. But yeah, sorry, carry on.
No. I just real quick on the D&D thing. I think the biggest limitation with D&D that they're running into now is the loss of interpretation.
Yes.
Again, going back to like second edition, right? The second edition PHB, the Player's Handbook, opened with a letter that said, "Hey, these are my rules. they don't have to be your rules. This is how I recommend gameplay go. If adjust what you need to adjust, change what you want to change to make it your game. And I think that's what's kind of created this proliferation of games, which is not always a bad thing, but sometimes I think it's choice paralysis, right? There's just so many options, you don't know where to go.
Yeah, and we've become the rules as written generation. Every experienced game master will say the rules are only as important as the game you're playing. Just if the rule gets in the way of having a good time, ignore the rule. But that is not the mass perspective of it. The mass. Well, no. It says here this.
Well, and once again, if this hasn't happened to you, where you look at your GM and you're like, did I hit? And the GM just looks you straight in the eye and goes, you miss. Take the hint. Exactly. I mean, that's you've officially been stuck in storyline, not an RP. Accept the slide and just keep rolling.
Yeah, 100%.
But yes, we could go off ad infinitum.
If you don't mind, I think we will have to, because if you come back at some point in the future, because we need to do Avatar now, because you are the first person I've actually spoken to who already owns it. So just like I know a lot of people who want it, nobody who actually has it.
I own it, and I actually have the videos in reach because I use them in session with a lot of my younger clients.
Okay, well, we've got 3 and a bit more minutes before we've got to call it a day. So go on, tell me about Cora, because I love Cora, and yet she gets so much hate online. There's like, oh, it's not as good as the first. Cora is amazing.
Cora is amazing, but I will give those people who give it flack a little bit of credence and say it wasn't the writer's fault. Now, when Avatar, the Last Airbender, was greenlit, it was greenlit for all 3 books. So it was written as a series. Korra season 1 was greenlit, and only season 1. Korra season 2 was greenlit, and only season 2. And then season 3 and 4 were greenlit simultaneously.
So every day.
So was the story not as good? Yes, but because they had to write within the confines of what they were allowed to produce.
I don't know. I think the storylines there were just, again, from a therapeutic, the amount of crap that poor girl had to go through and come through the other side. I mean,
well, and especially, and even again, I tend to use Last Airbender just because how thick it is with philosophy as much as, and so much to pick out, and so much. I mean, there's so much if you're doing social emotional work with clients. I use the emotions wheel a lot, which I love, and I'll match the emotions wheel with like, all right, like we'll watch half an episode, and I'm like, okay, like what characters? Once I kind of get a feel to what characters they're gravitating towards, like we'll start breaking down, like what kind of emotions you're seeing, right? Instead of trying to do SEL work in their lives, let's do SEL work through the cartoon.
And that's what RPG therapy is at the end of the day. And now that we've got Avatar Legends, you can do exactly that, but in character.
Yep. Which is why I want to do it. So I'm so anxious to play. I just need to make the time and find the people. Well,
you've got a volunteer right here. So
on it.
Eric, this has been an absolute pleasure. I've been so looking forward to speaking to you for so long, and when you said yes, you wanted to come on here, I was like,
well, I appreciate you having me. It was a fun chat.
Yeah, and if you don't mind, we will do it again.
Just reach out
sometime soon,
of course.
So yes, any websites or anything you want to signpost people at?
At this point, no. Just as always, I'll give the classic gamer pitch. Support your local gamer shop. Buy local.
Hear, hear. Well, Eric Droznock, thank you so much for being here. I hope everybody else had as much fun as I did, because this has just been an absolute blast. And if anybody has questions or comments, please leave them below, and I'll speak to you soon. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Daniel.